Hello, this video will walk you through the different documents that you will be receiving as part of the metadata compilation about the surveys on migrant and ethnic minorities in each of your countries. The purpose of this video is to simply let you know what are the documents that you will have to be using and what is contained in each of one. So you will receive two Word documents. The first Word document, it's called Final CA16111 Ethnic Survey Data, Workgroup 1, Workgroup 2, Metadata Template with no marks, and it's essentially the Word document with the full set of guidelines in clean and final version. You will also receive this other version, which is the one that contains all of the markings. These markings are only useful in order to let you know where we have added some information, when we have modified any aspect relating to the explanations, and particularly when you go through the whole document to the table where we are actually describing the variables that we need to collect in the metadata template, which is this table that you can see here. You can see all of the additions that we've made to codes, for example, a systematization of the don't know, information not available, or not applicable codes, as well as the additional explanations that we've added in the comment sections. If you've not really started in full to do the compilation of the metadata, this document is not of too much use to you because you will not have done previous work. But we know that in some cases, for some countries, a substantial number of surveys have already been compiled into the pilot metadata template that was circulated before the Paris meeting. So if this is your case, then you might want to have a look at this file that has all of the markings and then be able to check what is new and what is not new so that you can amend your existing file. For the time being and for the remainder of this video, I will focus on the clean version, just simply because it's easier to see, and you can use the one that has the corrections if you need to do so. So in essence, the Word document provides the guidelines of what you should be doing in relation to the task. And from this point of view, you need to be reading in detail this Word document before you even open the Excel file that I will be showing you in a minute. So the introduction is just setting what are the aims of the document and what are the aims of the task, and it outlines what are the different sections that you will find in the document as such. So the document is structured first of all with some general guidelines of what survey data you should be searching for and you should be compiling and how you should be approaching this task. The document also contains a full table with a list of the metadata variables that are included already in the Excel template, and this is a very important part that you need to be reading in quite detail and printing out, because this is where you will find the detailed explanations of how to code each of the variables. Then you find a third section with more detailed annotations and clarifications on some variables, that require additional explanations. And another section with technical notes regarding the use of the metadata template. Finally, you will find a checklist that needs to be completed and submitted when you send the final Excel template, and which is designed to help you ensure that you're fulfilling all of the requirements in the delivery. So let's go first very quickly through the general guidelines. What you will find here is a first set of specifications about what time period we are aiming to cover. As we have discussed in several of the meetings, all teams or national delegations should be including all of the surveys that they can detect and that were conducted since the year 2000. And by conducted, we mean here their starting date of field work. and this should be on or after 1st January 2000. So what this essentially means is that all countries should uncover all of the existing surveys that have been undertaken in the 2000s and the 2010s. You have more detailed explanations about how this is a minimal requirement, so I really advise that you look into this very carefully and step by step. You also have a section that walks you through which types of surveys you should be including and what are the minimal sample sizes. First of all, you need to bear in mind that we are only including in our exercise surveys, which are in this case sample-based quantitative studies. So we're not including either studies that are exclusively based on qualitative interviews or using only semi-structured interview outlines or questionnaires, or mixed methods, but we are including mixed method studies that include both a quantitative survey and a qualitative survey. Additionally, we're not including surveys that are to political, social, or economic elites because we're focusing only on ordinary individuals of ethnic or migrant origin. You need to be very mindful that we're not interested in other statistical or administrative data. So we're not including the censuses, even if they're undertaking with a sample of the population. And we're not including any aggregate level statistical or administrative data, such as the one that you would obtain in Eurostat or in the OECD or in the National Statistical Institutes, generally speaking. So all national teams must be systematically searching and compiling information about, first of all, nationwide surveys that are specifically addressed to ethnic and or migrant minority respondents. And you should also be including surveys that are focusing specifically on ethnic or migrant minority respondents at the subnational level. Moreover, we're also aiming at covering nationwide or subnational surveys that are conducted with general populations, but where we have substantial subsamples of ethnic and or migrant minority respondent. In these cases, we recognize that in some countries, it might be a very, very big task to try to compile all of the surveys that include substantial subsamples of ethnic or migrant minority respondents. So you have here a set of steps or kind of guidelines of when you should consider such surveys. And we're establishing a number of conditions of relevance to be met. And these are relating to the sample sizes or to the topics of the survey or to the availability of alternative sources of survey data in that country. The document also outlines which surveys you should be including in which files when the surveys are multi-location. And here we refer to surveys that have been done, for example, in different countries, like a survey that has been undertaken, for example, in Belgium, in Spain, and Romania, where we should code those. So you will find here the guidelines of what to do in those situations that are perhaps more unusual. Finally, this introductory section includes some guidelines on how to search for the survey. So what is the data compilation strategy? And we provide a number of bullet point sort of tips of how to do systematic searches in social science data archives, how to send emails to email lists, how to contact the research groups that are relevant in your country, and a series of other useful tips that you should probably be following one by one so that you ensure that you maximize coverage of all the surveys that actually exist. We also provide a minimal dictionary of keywords for searches that you would want to be doing online. And of course, you can expand this dictionary as you see fit for your own country. Another section here into the introduction deals with how to deal with limited information on the surveys. And here, the main aspect to bear in mind is that as long as you can identify the essential pieces of information, you should be including any survey that you have detected, no matter how limited the information available is. Finally, we have some tips about who should be filling in the Excel template. It's quite important that the person who fills, or the persons who fill the Excel template, is well trained in quantitative survey research, and ideally they should also be a person that is acquainted a bit at least with ethnic and migrant studies. And if this person is an expert in quantitative survey research but does not know too much about ethnic and migrant studies, you might want to train them a little bit about the key aspects and languages before they start with the task. So the core part of the document is really this table with a list of the metadata variables that are included in the Excel template as well. So essentially the information that you have here in this Word document and the one that you have in the Excel file is in a sense duplicated, although it is quite important that you print out these pages with the tables, because it is here where you will get all these comments with more details and explanations about how to interpret each of the variables. For example, the first section deals with general information about the survey, and here the variables are specified, and here the response categories. So the first variable, of course, is the country for which you're compiling the metadata template, and you will have a drop-down menu with the country codes to select. You have some variables for which some explanations are required, like this one, where you need in this variable to select which is the territorial scope of the survey, and you have some additional comments that tell you that this means at which territorial level the survey is designed to be representative. So essentially, you should print out all of these pages and always have them with you at hand before moving to the Excel file for coding. So once you go down and scroll down and have a look at all of these details of the variables and the explanations, you should then find sections with additional detailed tips for you to do the task at hand. So this section, section 3, provides some detailed annotations and clarifications on variables that require more explanations. For example, response rates. How would we want to report on response rates? We also have additional explanations on the kind of information on sampling that we're looking for. And we also have information on what counts a subgroup. We also have other technical notes on the saving format that we would like you to be using, and also some graphical representation about how exactly you should be dealing with the Excel file. So essentially, that you should be adding a new column for each new survey rather than creating a new Excel file for each survey or a new sheet for each survey. At the end, you have this checklist where we ask you to check whether you've done the minimal kind of task that you need to be completing. So, do the national and subnational metafiles contain data only about surveys? Have you filled in the information required in the annotation sheets? Have you used one column to input the information for each survey? And have you completed the required information in sections 1 to 10 of the Excel template? With this, let's move very quickly to the Excel file, which I will only be briefly introducing now, as we will have a separate video on the Excel file and how to fill it in as such. Again, you will have two different Excel files. The first one is primarily for orientation, and it's this Excel file called Final Ethnic Survey Data Metadata Template Changes Marked. Now, the purpose of this Excel file is only to highlight which sections or parts of the Excel file are new, have been added since the Paris version. And again, this will be relevant only for those national delegations that have already collected and compiled a substantial number of surveys since the Paris meeting, because they already did the bulk of work. So what you will find is that in each sheet you have in yellow the marking of which variables have either been added or changed, so that you can double check what you had before and what the changes are and adapt them as necessary. And this happens in the annotation sheet. It also happens in the national surveys sheet, where you can find several rows that are in yellow because they have either been added or they have been corrected in one way or the other. And you also find quite a few bits of yellow in the subnational surveys sheet. So as you can see, we have substantially, in minor ways, but sort of substantially gone through the whole Excel template. And you might want to have a look at those changes and see how it affects the data that you've already compiled, if that's the case. Okay, so I'll now just very quickly introduce the sections that you'll find in this Excel file. And as I said, there will be a separate video for the Excel file. So bear with me if this goes a little bit quick. Now, the first sheet that you will find and that you should read in the first place is this sheet called Instructions, Read Me First. And as the name says, you should really read the instructions first, because it will provide you with the minimal information of what this template is about, and who to ask if you have queries, and how to fill the template. And of course, at the end, you have a citation of how to cite the template file in the future. The second sheet is the annotation sheet, where you should be filling in the information of what is the country for which the file is filled in, what are the persons filling in the file, the contact details, and any comments relating to the experience of the persons filling the file, the challenges or difficulties, and issues relating to the date and the sort of technical decisions that you've made when filling in the metadata template, the rest of this Excel document. Beyond this annotation sheet, what you will have is these two sheets, which are the ones where you need to be filling the data as such. The first sheet is the national survey sheet, and it includes in column A the names of the variables, and each survey should be included in one column starting from column B. You find exactly the same outline in the subnational surveys sheet. The only difference is that this is the sheet that you should be using for surveys that are conducted only in a limited number of cities or in a limited number of regions. Again, the variables are listed in column A, and you have the columns of where you should be filling in the data in columns B, C, and onwards. Finally, you'll find this sheet with codes that you should not be touching, and we would kindly request you that you don't modify in any way, because it's the sheet from which the codes for the national and the subnational sheets are being pulled from. So with this, I finish this initial introductory video on how to undertake the task of the metadata compilation, and the next video will go in detail through these sections of the Excel file and how exactly to fill each of the surveys. Thank you and goodbye.